Hi, I'm Thomas Bowles, Prince William County Agricultural Extension Agent. Welcome to our video.
Okay, good morning. It's 11 o'clock. We're going to get started. Today's class is on native flowering shrubs and being presented by Nancy Berlin, our natural resources specialist. Nancy, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, thanks for coming today. It's a beautiful day out, and I appreciate you being here. We're going to be talking about flowering shrubs, and I inserted native after the fact, so I hope you're not disappointed. So for shrub selection, we need to look at the mature size is probably one of the biggest issues. As you can see, a lot of people plant things when they're small and squeeze them all in there and then find out that the mature size is too large and they can't see out the windows or get out the door. And constant pruning of something to keep it small is stressful on a plant. You know, occasional pruning helps the plant be healthier. But if you're constantly pruning to make it smaller, you probably need a different choice. How much maintenance are you willing to do? Some shrubs need more maintenance than others. But if you choose the right plant for the right place, there will be less maintenance involved. What species are going to work? Do you need it for the bones of a landscape? And that's a good way to judge that is looking at your trees and shrubs in the winter and seeing do they provide interest during the winter, but also do they provide a structure to your landscape design? Do you want a different texture of the leaves, different structure? There's, a lot of different shapes, shrubs, more vase-like, multi-stemmed, and what kind of color, fall color, flower color, and bloom time. And to me, the most important is what ecosystem services that shrub will provide. And that can be in terms of songbirds, pollinators, beneficial insects. And so all those things are important. So choosing the right plant for the right place. And I've made so many mistakes in this area. Just going to say here up front that I'm speaking from experience here. So really consider your site. Take a while and look at the sun exposure, how much wind it gets. Is there a microclimate? Is it right by your house or a concrete walkway where it will be a little bit warmer? What the pH and quality of the soil is. And we'll talk about these a little bit more in the next slides. Is the soil compacted? Does it need modification, amendment? And what kind of drainage do you have? Does water stay in the hole when you do it? When you dig a hole and you pour water in it, watch how the water infiltrates. A lot of native shrubs that are meant for wetlands are planted in a normal suburban landscape with compacted soil and fast drainage, and so they tend to struggle more. And so, in order to not have to water to create a wet site, picking the right shrub is important. So again, your goals for the plant, and are there any other plants around it that might have allelopathic or be sending out chemicals in the root system into the soil that might affect? Some things grow really well under black walnut, and poplar tend to give you some trouble too sometimes. So look at the plant community that's already growing there, and more on that later. And what are your expectations? Anything that grows pretty fast and gives you immediate results is probably not a plant you want to put in a suburban landscape, just a general rule. Are there overhead utilities? Even some of these shrubs can get pretty tall. And to avoid having somebody come and whack off the top of your shrub because it is too tall, then plant the right one. And do you have wildlife pressure? Do you have a lot of deer in your neighborhood? I mean, most of us do. Do you need an evergreen, or can you handle a deciduous shrub? So soil testing is a good idea to find out what the conditions in the soil are. Even if we look at the soil survey for Virginia and we look at what's kind of soil is in our neighborhood, much of that is soil has been upended and modified, or some of the topsoil scraped off. So check out what you already have, and you can get a soil kit and have a really good legitimate soil test done through Virginia Tech. We have the kits at the Extension office on Ashton Avenue, but Chin and Potomac libraries have some soil kits also that you can pick up if you're in the eastern part of the county. It's $10. It's well worth it. Collect the soil in the root zone of where you want to plant, and no rocks or twigs or grass, and send it with your check to the Virginia Tech Soil Lab. Don't bring it in the office. You send it yourself. But if you get the results and you're not sure how to interpret them, you can always email our help desk, and we'll put that in the chat so you can. And if you're in a pinch, we can mail you a soil kit at your home. Most trees and shrubs, oops, there's a little typo there, need a pH between 7.5 and 6.0. But there are others that like more alkaline, and some like a lower pH, like rhodos, dendrons, mountain laurels, azaleas, blueberries, hollies. They all like a little more acidic soil. So if your soil is already alkaline, it's going to be very hard to permanently reduce the pH to the needed level for these sites. So select your plants based on your soil type, and choose an alternate site perhaps for the acid-loving plants. Trees and shrubs generally don't need any fertilization, but if you see symptoms, you can do a soil test to confirm that. Don't guess. I guess this is an azalea here, and it looks like it's kind of chlorotic or yellow, and we might jump to the conclusion that this needs nitrogen, but insects can suck the chlorophyll out of a leaf. If this azalea is planted in a alkaline situation and it likes acidic soil, that might be going on. So don't guess. Just base your all your decisions in your landscape on science. And if you've got deer, there are a couple resources that are good. The Rutgers deer resistant plant, and note that it says resistant. It's not deer proof. There's nothing that is deer proof. Plant Nova Natives also has a good list, and we can put these in the chat box too, so you can peruse these at your leisure. I think we'll also be sending out some links when we send you the class evaluation so that you can go back. And this will be posted on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, VCE-Prince William YouTube. And so you can review at your leisure later too. So here's an idea. You can put traditional tree tubes around young plants, or you can spray them with a deer deterrent, but you have to do it kind of regularly. But this is a kind of a cool idea. If you have more of a natural landscape, probably most HOAs would not like this, but if you're a basket weaver, you can do an interesting little protection around your new shrubs until they get strong enough to withstand deer pressure. So let me see. Again, I'm going to cover native and the reasons why they're generally more adapted to conditions. Plus, they provide habitat and ecosystem services. And so we're really pushing that in the county for all new plantings around any building is planting only natives also. So it provides year-round beauty. They're generally a really good option. So all trees cool the environment, but native trees provide food and shelter for birds and other wildlife. And we really need to think of our yards, not just in terms of beauty, but also beauty and ecosystem services. So native Virginia trees support a lot of different Virginia native insects and wildlife, particularly caterpillars, which are, as you probably know, are critical for baby songbirds' diet. So I've marked the Northern Virginia natives with a double asterisk. The rest are native to East Coast or Virginia or otherwise noted. I've put a couple maps in, and I'll give you a resource. Don't guess again at nativity for a shrub. The Digital Atlas of Flora of Virginia is a definitive source that I use so that I know exactly what counties in Virginia that something is native. And if I have a different kind of site that might be a little more protected, I might be able to get away with something. So a lot, you'll often hear native, or you might hear the word nativar, and many native plants have been hybridized, and it's to enhance the color, the leaf color, the flower shape, the size, the width, the height. And some of these changes occur naturally, spontaneously in plants, and those plants are selected out of a breeding program and chosen for propagation. So that's kind of a naturally occurring nativar. But others are bred genetically to be different. And the effects are not always predictable. We can't say, that all flowers, all shrubs with a good fall color that have been altered genetically are going to be harmful, but there's some good general rules. Plants that are genetically modified or and not occurring spontaneously may be infertile, and they may be clones if they're propagated through that method, and that might limit genetic diversity. So the University of Vermont we'll put these in the chat box too. And we can send it out to you with the evaluation, but University of Vermont, Mount Cuba, Penn State, they all are having research projects ongoing to judge the acceptability of a nativar for habitat and wildlife and pollinators. So there's some ecological implications. So we talk about straight species versus these nativars being spontaneously growing or genetically, bred for differences. And they can play an important part in the ecosystem. They're not evil. They're not all the same. You can't compare them. But in general, avoid things with double flowers that have been altered from the straight species. Avoid shrubs that have different leaf colors than the straight species or changed flower shape. And again, you can look at a real good article, simple to read, from Mount Cuba Center on sourcing native plants. So you're not going to get this information at your normal box store or probably most nurseries. There are some native nurseries that are listed on the Plant Nova Natives website, and that will be able to give you this information. But be an educated consumer yourself. So choosing a shrub that's high quality, make sure the roots look healthy. They're not slimy or have a sheath that comes off. I know this can be a little touchy if you're looking for it, but again, picking a reputable native nursery is probably your best bet for being able to look at these things. The trunk is full of free of mechanical wounds and pruning mistakes like little stubs left or flush cuts it was pruned wrong. Not everybody in the horticulture industry knows what they're doing, to be honest. And so you need to be an informed consumer. Make sure there's a strong bond with the branches, and there's not like included bark, and the leaves look like they have good color, and there's minimal insect damage. Some insect damage is to be expected because, in an ecosystem, insects eat plants. So look for the trunk flare. It is rare to find this trunk flare above the soil line, but that is what we're looking for. And if you get a couple different types of shrubs, that is more likely. So a low quality shrub, you have little leaves, they're yellow or brown or black. They have weeds growing out of the pot. They probably have circling roots because they've been in the pot so long. Nurseries are out to make a profit. And sometimes if they don't sell the shrubs right away, they're carried over for another year. And another year in the pot can be detrimental to the root system as it can be corrected, but it's more difficult. So for most of my shrubs, I choose a bare root or a tubeling instead of a larger shrub. They're easier to afford. I'm getting older. They're easier to lift. They're easier to plant. You can actually see the root system. So the root system on the right is like a bare root, and that's the way it comes to you in the mail. It looks like a stick with roots. And the most important thing is that you keep it cool and moist until you can plant it. So I made the mistake of ordering a few bare root things, and I didn't get them in the ground in time. So I ended up, it's too torrid and hot out right now to do anything, put a poor shrub in the ground. So I put them in a pot, and I do give it some regular nitrogen because the pot has a finite amount of nutrients in it. And I put it in a cool spot and I water it regularly until fall when it's a little more forgiving. But don't let it freeze. Don't let it sit in water. Keep it soaked in damp newspaper. Keep it moist. But don't do what I did. Order it at the right time of year so that you can put it in the early spring, late winter, after danger of frost, or fall when the temperatures are cooler and you have a little more rainfall. A tubeling just is this. It just looks like this. And when we do reforestation projects in the county, tubelings come like this for us. And so they're grown in a nursery and in plastic plug containers. And when they're about 3 months old, they have a wonderful root system, and you can put them right into the ground easily. They're great for volunteer projects because you don't have to lift a tree or shrub into the hole. So if you don't get a bare root or a tubeling, so this is how you plant a bare root. They're a little different. Be careful handling them. If there's any circling roots, there probably won't be any, but just you can cut them right at the place that they start to turn. Dig a hole large enough to accommodate it. That's not hard to do with bare root or tubelings. And put it so that crown, that root flare is above the soil line. Backfill with native soil. Don't add any compost to the planting hole, and then firm it up with your hands and baby it for a while. Check to see when it gets dry, water it again, especially if there's no rainfall. So when you're looking at trees and shrubs in a landscape, some shrubs are naturally multi-stem. So that's, should be a consideration when you're looking at the health. These are some things that kill a tree or a shrub. Avoid these. Make sure it has enough growing space and prune properly, mulch properly. More on all of these things later. Avoid topping it. And co-dominant leaders are just two main stems. Some shrubs have one main stem and some are multi-stemmed. So how to plant a tree or shrub? You're going to dig a hole that's about 3 times the width of the root ball. So if you're getting a balled and burlap or a container garden plant, you're going to tease out the roots until they're like the rays of a sun, cut any that are circling, free up that root flare above the soil line. If there's any roots up above that root flare, then cut those. Again, don't use amended soil in the holes because it creates a perch water table, and water will accumulate because it can't go past that interface. I know that doesn't seem to make sense, but trust me, that's what we're recommending. So again, removing the burlap wires And if you have the tree planted, insist that the person planting it does these things too, and they will argue with you. So this tree on the shrub on the right has a nice root system. It's profuse. I might, I spread that out in the hole and make sure the hole is big enough and that root collar is above the soil line. For mulching, incorrect mulching tends to be high and against the tree trunk. Keep it away from the tree trunk. Go to the drip line if you can, and make it only about 2 to 4 inches deep. Keep that root flare free of any mulch. So turf and trees and shrubs don't go together. The turf will win in this battle. And it has some allelopathic tendencies so that the roots won't want to go in the turf area, and the turf will take nutrients and water. So if the wider the mulch ring that you can put out away from the trunk, the better. Again, this shows rodent damage there. So this poor tree or shrub is battling the turf. It's battling moles that and then so it's a great habitat under that soil line or in a really thick mulch bed. Consider using arborist wood chips for mulch. They're free. You can get Chip Drop here. There's the website, but just put Chip Drop in a Google search and you can sign up. It's a lot of chips though. Just make sure you're ready for it. I still have some that was dropped off last fall and I'm still trying to get rid of them. But they're wonderful and they let water and air permeate the soil. If you're planting a new bed or something, they're good for preparing that area. They do not steal nitrogen from the surrounding landscape. So irrigating new shrubs, make sure they get consistent watering until the root system's established, and that might be a couple years. So if you're not getting sufficient rainfall each week, make sure that you're watering well, no matter what type of shrub you're planting. This is a good general rule. First 2 weeks after planting, check it and see if it's drying out, particularly in this really hot weather. You're not going to want to plant a shrub right now. Wait till fall. Just check it with your finger to make sure that the root area is moist every week or so. And then after the roots are established, sometimes that takes 1 to 2 years. Usually you get about 1 to 5 gallons per inch of that trunk size. And as the roots grow and spread, irrigation will need to be increased. Our intake survey for new clients bring in a plant problem in, people almost inevitably will say that they don't water. They wait for the rain to water it. And you know that every year, probably since 1999, we've had some significant drought conditions. Gator bags are an option, but hand watering is preferable. You can put a gator bag in there, but most gator bags that I see around the county are empty. And so they're a perfect environment for insects and disease to develop. But if you have to be away and you know it's a vulnerable tree or shrub, you can consider one and then fill it well and check it, make sure it keeps full and remove it as soon as you don't need it anymore. So a well-established shrub has a massive root system, but it doesn't go down, it goes out. And so often we'll see roots coming up into turf areas or walkways, and they're seeking oxygen. And sometimes this can be 4 to 5 times the diameter past the drip line. So that's the watering zone. So there's a few shrubs that don't have that kind of root, and they're rhizomatous, and they tend to go out much more laterally than they do vertically. And these are good for slopes. So you might consider these native shrubs for slopes if you're trying to deal with erosion problems They're beautiful too, but they can sucker, and colonies of them can develop. So remember, trees and turf don't coexist. Well, fertilize based on a soil test. If you need diagnostics, you can send a help desk a picture, or bring a sample in with an appointment, or consult an arborist to come for a site visit. Choose natives, meet the needs of the plant. That's why I spent so much time here going over the maintenance before we even look at the pretty pictures. Because that's going to make or break your new shrub, and shrubs are expensive. So in general, trees versus shrubs, this is a general rule. Woody plant 13 feet or taller, we're going to consider a tree. There's a few in here that I kind of fudged on. Shrubs are usually less than 13 feet, but these are all general rules. Okay. So for the purpose of this presentation, we can talk about a variety of sizes, and some can be small trees or single or multi-stem. So there's a lot of variety here. So the successful pruning calendar, pruning is an important part, but if you pick the right plant for the right place, you don't have to prune, and that's less stress for the tree. So we'll put a link for this in for the timing of pruning shrubs. Here's some that, these are not all natives, but here's some that can be pruned right after flowering. And this is all contained on the shrub pruning calendar also. Here's shrubs that can be pruned during the dormant season. Some of these can be pruned right down to the ground for a renovation. So some plants, I think, act like shrubs. This is a picture from Thomas Rainier, Phyto Studio, what he used with permission. And this is showing Amsonia. And it kind of acts like a shrub. It's got woody kind of stems, but I cut mine back every year. So I kind of consider Amsonia a subshrub. So think about whether this perennial Amsonia or a couple other ones might serve the purpose of a shrub. Here's another picture of the Amsonia. Baptisia also is kind of woody and acts like a shrub. Redbud is more of a tree, but it is a smaller tree, so it's good for suburban landscape. But it likes the forest edge. It doesn't like to be in full sun. It's used by leafcutter bees. It's used by pollinators as a good fall color. A fringe tree, it's a beautiful tree, Chionanthus virginicus. It's a smaller tree though, so I'm going to include it here, about 15 to 25 feet. Needs full sun, although mine's seems to be doing well in partial sun, probably about 6 hours. It's very intolerant of drought though, so make sure count the cost. Nectar and source, it is in the same genus as ash, so it may be attacked by emerald ash borer, but we haven't had very many reports in Virginia of that yet. Serviceberry, this is a beautiful shrub, has delicious berries, good fall color. The one that's native to Northern Virginia is Amelanchier canadensis. The others are in the mountain region, so I wouldn't choose those for Northern Virginia. Sweet Bay magnolia, it prefers wet soil. So again, count the costs here. You don't want to put it in a droughty condition because it'll just stress it. It's about 10 to 35 feet, so this is a little large for a shrub. Multi-stemmed, beautiful spring bloom, and keeps most of its leaves, if it's happy, in the winter. Pawpaw prefers moist sites also. Takes about 5 years for it to get fruit, full to part sun, probably part sun. It was better on the edge again. Really cool flower on the right and the left here, and native of Northern Virginia. Silky dogwood is also an underused plant that's a native to Northern Virginia. It's about 8 feet tall at the most. It likes full sun, likes moisture, which is a hard combination to find. The berries are beautiful. The birds like them, and good fall color. Nice spring white flowers. Flowering dogwood, our native dogwood. There are some cultivars that are more disease resistant that would probably be a really good choice. So ask your nursery. It likes the edge. Don't put it in the middle like this picture has. It does better in part sun with rich soils. And again, mammals and songbirds and pollinators appreciate this. Gray dogwood is another native dogwood. That's a great choice. Fold apart sun, interesting berries, and even those red stems that come out after the flowers fall off. And it's a spring bloomer. Devil's walking stick. Hey, this has to have the right place. It's got some treacherous thorns on the bark, but it's deer resistant because of that, likes the edge. It has a really lot of value for wildlife. Here's some shrubs to avoid: barberry, nandina, privet, butterfly bush, and burning bush. These are all invasive in Virginia. This is not an exhaustive list, however. Spice bush is a good understory tree. It supports the cutest caterpillar ever. The spice bush swallowtail has wonderful berries for birds, yellow early spring bloom before it gets its leaves in good fall color. I love this. Deer resistant, it's probably the way our forests are going since it's deer resistant. Sweet spire, Atea virginica, is used a lot in the nursery trade now. And there is a smaller version called Little Henry, and there's a Henry's Garnet that has a little bit different shade of leaves. I would pick the Little Henry over or a straight species of sweet spire because of the leaf color change. Atea virginica is a wetland plant, though, and so people will put it in the full sun. In a dry suburban landscape, and sometimes it'll struggle. If it gets enough water, it will be much more resistant to diseases and insects. It does tend to sucker, so that you can do a lot of propagating if you like that. Summer sweet or plethora is another wetland plant. Beautiful. I have failed at this because I thought I had a wet site. I probably planted it 3 or 4 times, and it just hasn't been wet enough. Fragrant, good spring blooms, beautiful, native, Northern Virginia native. Just make sure it has the right site. Red osier dogwood, beautiful in the winter with the red stems. The red stems turn brown as they get older, so you can just prune the brown ones out. Takes full sun to part shade, dry to wet soils, very adaptable. It can be very fast growing. And the sawflies have gotten mine the last 3 years. So I'm going to, took it out. I'm going to mix it up and move it to another spot. Hopefully they won't find it. Fothergilla is not native to Northern Virginia, but as you can see, there's a little past us in North Carolina. But if you have the right conditions, acidic soil, full sun, to part shade, it can be a good plant as long as the conditions mimic more of a North Carolina habitat. This is an interesting plant. The flowers are purple. It's got these bright orange stamens. It's called false indigo morpha fruticosa. It's a good native substitute for butterfly bush. It likes medium to wet soils. I have mine in about medium soil. It's very adaptable. I also have it in part sun. I'm trying it out there because I had a spot. It is covered with pollinators. It's a very interesting shrub. It's done blooming now. Blooms profusely in May, though. Buttonbush, again, another one that likes wet condition. People try to put it in, the landscape that is droughty or compacted, and it's just not going to do well. But it's a great pollinator plant. It looks kind of like the coronavirus, I always think. Alkaline soils, stream side, next to a pond where it's going to get wet. Again, native to Northern Virginia. The alder is another good plant that likes to be right on the edge of a stream bank or swamp or river. It needs a lot of water, but if you get it in the right place and it's happy, it is the coolest shrub. And these little cones, which are really the fruit with this, all winter. Carolina, this is the native rose, and it will grow in partial shade, flowers better in the sun, is more disease resistant. So give a plant what it needs and it'll be more pest and disease resistant. The native roses are semi-aggressive. You might need to do some pruning, and they're not so suitable for smaller landscapes. Any white roses that you see, like in the woods, are probably the invasive multiflora rose. The beautyberry, I would recommend Calicarpa americana, the American beautyberry over the Asian version. As you can see, it has really pretty lavender white flowers in the spring, kind of pinky, persistent winter berries that the birds love, and it will tolerate dry conditions. So this is a great one but it does get a little big, but you can do some selective pruning. New Jersey tea is a great Northern Virginia native. It's fragrant, attracts bees, and can take full sun, part shade. It tolerates drought. It is a little bit slow to establish, though. Common nine bark is native to Northern Virginia. It's kind of a rangy, but you can keep it a little bit smaller with some selective pruning. Has really interesting peeling bark for winter interest. It's drought tolerant. It likes acidic soils, though. St. John's wort, this is our native shrubby St. John's. It's deer and rabbit resistant. Not, doesn't mean the babies won't eat it. It's a host plant for caterpillars. It's attractive to pollinators. Full to partial sun. I would say more full sun. This is a really beautiful shrub that's underused mostly because deer eat it like candy. Full sun to deep shade, really adaptable. Hearts of Burston or Euonymus americanus. But it is poisonous to livestock. This steeple bush I tried to plant, and it wasn't quite in our county, as you can see from the map below, and I probably did not give it enough moisture. So this is our native spirea, and not native to Northern Virginia, but possibly given the right conditions and the right microclimate, you could make it work. Don't do what I did. This is our native hydrangea, arborescens. It's deer and rabbit resistant, but don't count on it all the time. Tolerates black walnut. This can be pruned after blooming in the early spring. Needs some shade. This is the oak leaf hydrangea, which is planted a lot in Northern Virginia, but it's not native to Virginia. It's native to southeast, south of us. I had this growing successfully, and it's getting some shade. It's getting plenty of water, so I think it's doing fine. I've never had any disease pressure. But again, it's not native to Northern Virginia. The winterberry holly is a great holly. It's deciduous. You need a male and a female plant. It prefers wet areas, so I give mine some supplemental irrigation. One male will be fine for about 6 to 10 females, and they get these beautiful berries in the winter on bare branches. Inkberry holly, we've used this successfully instead of dogwood in a few places that have wet sites. It has nice berries for birds, but again, you can see it's not native to Northern Virginia or up in Prince William. And you need a male and a female to produce berries. I know several master gardeners who have very successfully grown this, including Janice Beaverson. I'm a little jealous of yours. Yaupon holly is another good substitute for non-native boxwood. And again, it is not native to Northern Virginia. However, given the right conditions, we've used it at a couple historic sites because it's tolerant of many soils and heavy pruning. So we're trying it there. Here, I already did buttonbush. Chokeberry, aronia. I have a couple of these. I cut one to the ground and it came back beautifully. It does get some Rosaceae family diseases and some leaf spots. but it's really good for birds. Chokeberry is another one that's similar, but has red berries. It can handle wet sites, but it suckers a lot. It's in the Rosaceae family, which tends to have more leaf spot problems, diseases. But there's a lot of viburnums. This is the maple leaf viburnum. There's natives and non-natives. So if you want to stick with natives, these are a few of the native Northern Virginia: possum haw, black haw, witherwood. I haven't seen witherwood in the trade for a while. Full sun to part shade, medium to wet. They're very adaptable and great berries for wildlife. Here's a few other ones that are not native to Northern Virginia, but the arrowwood viburnum is pretty adaptable. We're going to try it at a couple sites in the county. And the cranberry viburnum, of course, that is a little bit north and south of us. Nandyberry is a good one for Northern Virginia. There are so many viburnums. If you need help, you can contact our help desk, and we can help you select the right viburnum for almost any condition. Northern bayberry, I see this recommended a lot. I know our county arborist has been successful, but you can see that it's mostly a coastal. But it could be considered because it is tolerant a lot of moisture variations and is semi-evergreen, keeps most of its leaves. Elderberry, this is a fast-growing shrub with great wildlife value for the berries. Nice white flowers. You can make jam out of it. It is self-pollinating, but having two varieties is advantageous. This needs a big area. Low bush blueberry and high bush blueberry are great ornamental plants. They have beautiful fall color. They give you these cool flowers and then berries, and I have to share mine with the birds, but I don't mind. It does prefer a little acidic soil, and it loses its leaves in the winter, so you can do some dormant season pruning to make the shape the way you want it. So it really is a beautiful ornamental. Here's another. Look at the color of this high bush blueberry. This is native to Northern Virginia. I think it can be used in the front yard with any HOA and be accepted. Pinkster azalea is the native azalea. The other azaleas that you find more commonly are not native. This takes full sun to part shade, is fragrant. Look at that beautiful flower. And hummingbirds love it. I'm trying a few in my yard. Witch hazel is wonderful. The native blooms October through December, okay? The non-native ones bloom at the middle to end of the winter. So this is the native one you're seeing here, and it has kind of yellow, strappy, fragrant flowers that attract birds. Mountain laurel, a little difficult to grow. You'll see it in the woods, so you know it's deer resistant. When you walk through the woods, see what's left in the woods in the understory. It needs cool, moist, humusy soils, shade, the right conditions, and I think really the right kind of soil, fungus, beneficial fungus and bacteria so that it can thrive. I don't have this in my yard. Most suburban landscapes don't have the right conditions for this in their yard unless you have a wooded lot. So this is Doug Tallamy's latest initiative, the Homegrown National Park. You should go to his website and take a look. If we all try to make our landscapes not just beautiful, but really important for habitat, they're each can be considered like a small park, and we can join those landscapes together. So for a reputable source of native range information, consult the virginiaplantatlas.org. This is the Flora of Virginia project, and it's the definitive source for whether something is native, and the maps that you saw were from there. So microclimates, again, seasonal changes, planting procedures are all factors, but for the most success, go ahead and consult that before you make an investment. So Prince William County is divided into two physiographic regions. There's the Piedmont and the coastal plain, and I-95 separates those generally. So native plants for the coastal zone would be, for Woodbridge, Dale City, Dumfries, and west of that area, Haymarket and Brentsville and Bristow and Manassas Park and Manassas City would be the Piedmont. And here's another map that shows you where we're located. About 80% of the county is in the Piedmont region. And so we've got a unique transition zone. So think about that when you choose your plants too. And again, we can help you with this through the Extension Horticulture Help Desk. You can, if you're planting in a wooded area, some shrub understory, look what's already growing there. When we do a site visit, we go to the property, and if we're helping to do some reforesting in an already forested area, you want to stay within that plant community. The basic mesic forest has beech and hickory, jack in the pulpit, wild ginger, and it may not have all of these, but you're going to choose something from that plant community. Whereas the acidic oak hickory forest will support many of these other ones, the red oaks and the dogwood and the redbud. So these are all important considerations. It's not just about picking the shrub in the garden center that you think is pretty that day. So most of these images are from Missouri Botanic Garden, and Linda Goulden contributed to a portion of this with her in a previous presentation. Thank you, Linda. You can look up at the native plants. This is an online resource, Native Plants for Habitat and Conservation, Mount Cuba Center, Virginia Tech Publications, Penn Live. So there's a lot of great resources out, but sometimes it's hard to sort through it all. So please contact us at the help desk and we can help you with those decisions. We also have our past presentations posted on YouTube. There's a lot of great information there from 2 years of COVID presentations. You can sign up for our classes by email. You just go to the Prince William County website and look for e-notifications. And that is the end, and I'm willing to entertain some questions. Are you overwhelmed?
Nancy, we don't have any questions in the chat box.
Uh-oh, they went to sleep.
I've got one.
Oh, good.
As you know, we're trying to plan for a garden that could have children around it.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking about dangerous berries that they might be inclined to pick. And I'm wondering about like that low bush blueberry or high bush blueberry.
That's a good choice.
Those would be edible, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think I know the garden you're talking about.
Yeah,
And I did, when I made some recommendations for the shrub, I'm sure I took that into consideration, but we can talk more
Okay.
on that too. That's a really, really good point.
Thanks. Some of these sound so beautiful. And then I think, ooh, but berries.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
always wise to check out. And, I can't rely on my memory, honest, Chris. I have to look it up every time just to make sure. And,
I can't-
we've done site visits for people with llamas and, to make sure that it wasn't poisonous to them or horses. So, it differs depending on the species.
Okay. Oh. Llamas.
I know. Would you like to go on that site visit next time?
Yes.
It was pretty
Take me
fun.
with you.
Any other questions? Oh, no. Ask us for help. We are at the farmers market in Dale City and in Manassas, or you can email mastergardener@pwcgov.org to say, hey, I have these conditions. Here's a picture of my site. I've tested the soil. What do you think I should put in here? Because it's expensive. I've made a lot of expensive mistakes myself. Thank you all. I am happy that you came today. Now, maybe go out and garden before it gets too hot.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you everybody for coming. And we will see you next time. In 2 weeks, we have a presentation on culture and building soil. And we look forward to seeing you then. If you enjoyed this video, please let us know your questions, comments, and suggestions for other classes and videos. For more information on water quality, stormwater, lawns, gardens, landscapes, etc., contact the Extension Horticulture Help Desk at mastergardener@pwcva.gov. Thank you, and we'll see you all the next time.